Good afternoon. Muslims in the India's war for Indian independence. Are Muslims anti-national? Were there no Muslim voices against the division and partition of the country? Understanding the forces behind the partition in 1947 needs us to recall often many of voices within the Muslim community that oppose this division. However, Indian textbooks don't really portray Muslims this way, and Muslims in our textbooks are generally the victims of exclusion. If you study partition in our textbooks, usually there are 4 paragraphs that describe this tumultuous event that caused mass migration and loss of life, huge loss of life. Muslim League, birth of Muslim League, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Direct Action Day, partition. But what we need to understand is that maybe only about 4 to 10% of the Muslim elite was really allowed to vote on the partition resolution. And why do our textbooks, why does Indian public discourse not remember, for instance, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, 1890 to 1988, Anis Begum Kidwai, 1906 to 1982, Vaikam Muhammad Bashir, 1908 to 1994, way down in Kerala, Hajara Bibi Ismail from Telangana, Hydra Vega from Uttar Pradesh. Why do we not remember some of these figures is a question that we need to ask, particularly today when the voices of supremacism are drowning out any rational discourse. Let's start with Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, famously known as Frontier Gandhi. Born in 1890 in the Northwest Frontier Province, Peshawar district of Pakistan, his father was Behram Khan. He was the Sardar of a village called Uttamananzai. He joined the British Indian Army after completing his studies. Quit the army, however, outraged by the misbehavior of the British officers towards Indian colleagues in 1906. What turned his life, however, was a meeting with Mahatma Gandhi in 1928 at Calcutta, after which he became a very close aide and follower. He formed the Khudai Khidmatgars, Servants of God, and in 1929 he persuaded Pathans, who live by their weapons and the sword as a matter of culture, to lay down their traditional use of arms. When the British police turned the Khissa Khani Bazaar in Peshawar into a heap of corpses, the Servants of God, the Khudai Khidmatgars, did not even pelt a single stone against the police, but faced the bullets and answered with non-violent agitation. Ghaffar Khan attended the All India Congress meeting at Karachi on March 31, 1931, along with other volunteers of the Khudai Khidmatgars. And at this historic meeting of the Indian National Congress, the famous Fundamental Rights Resolution was passed, giving workers, farmers, peasants, and women equal rights. He spent 15 years in jail, unlike many of the Rashtra Bhaks of the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha. He spent 15 years in jail, participating in the Indian national movement. He was punished for it. He opposed the resolution passed by the Congress in May 1947, acquiescing to the division of the nation, for which he had to face the ire of the leaders of the Muslim League. His famous statements in anguish were to Gandhi and Nehru, "You have left us to the wolves." Pakistan establishment and government was so angry and irked by his statement that they declared him a coward and imprisoned him. He was in prison again. As a result, Ghaffar Khan had to spend 15 more years in jail and 6 years in exile. India honoured him with the highest civilian award, Bharat Ratna, in 1987. So you have Ambedkar, Baba Sahib Ambedkar, who's a Bharat Ratna, and you also have Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, who's a Bharat Ratna. Frontier Gandhi, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, who followed the path laid down by Gandhiji, passed away in 1988, almost 100 years old. He was 98 at that time. But why have independent India's textbooks and public discourse ignored him? That's the question we need to ask. Then let's come to Anis Begum Kidwai. Born in 1906, passed away in 1982. She too participated in the Indian national movement with passionate commitment. She was born in Barabanki in Uttar Pradesh. Her father was Sheikh Vilayat Khan. She then married Shafi Ahmad Kidwai. Her father, her husband, both freedom fighters as she was herself. Her brother-in-law, the famed Rafi Ahmad Kidwai, leaders of the national movement. Again, Anis Kidwai and her entire family had to face the ire of the British, since the earning members of the family quit their jobs in favor of committed political activism, and there were severe financial constraints that they had to live under. She too, just like the rest of her family, was deeply hurt by the partition of the country. Her husband, Shafi Ahmad Kidwai, who worked for harmony among Hindus and Muslims and opposed the division of the nation, was killed by communal forces. Despite this profound loss, A meeting with Mahatma Gandhi in Delhi after the demise of her husband propelled her to work along with women leaders like Subhadra Joshi, Mridula Sarabhai and others under the guidance of Gandhiji to support and help women survivors of partition. These were women who had witnessed the most brute violence and yet were healed by the relief and rehabilitation provided by sensitive political workers. They called her with affection Anisapa, and after independence she even sat in the Rajya Sabha from 1957 till 1968. She's written books with penning her experiences. Please read Azadi Ki Chhaav Mein. She also wrote Zulm and Ab Ji Ke Dekhenge, where she talks very, very evocatively about the bitter hatred caused by communal forces. She's also been honoured with the Sahitya Kala Parishad Award. Go down south, right down south to Kerala, and you have Vaikam Muhammad Bashir, 1908 to 1994. He used his literary weapons as a skill for the emancipation of the motherland India from the yoke of British. Born in Thayalola Parambu village, North Travancore district in Kerala in 1908. After finishing his primary education, he joined an English medium school in no less place than Vaikam, where he saw Mahatma Gandhi for the first time in 1924. Inspired by Gandhiji, he joined the Swadeshi movement and started wearing khadi. He quit his education to join the national movement and the Indian National Congress. He reached Kozhikode to participate in the salt satyagraha, for which he was imprisoned for 9 months. Later, he was influenced by the armed struggle against the British. As a result of his participation in the anti-British revolutionary activities, he spent another 7.5 years in several jails. Ujjivanam, his newspaper, to spread the revolutionary ideology among the people, was even banned by the British, and an arrest warrant issued against him in 1931. He went underground to avoid arrest and spent 7 years underground doing several works in different places. In 1937, he again returned to carry on his activities. The British government declared him a dangerous person and arrested him finally in 1947. He spent 3 months as an under trial prisoner. During that period, he penned his first book about the police and public affairs, narrating his lock-up experiences, wrote several novels, several books, and his books have been translated into many, many languages. A critique of state repression and atrocities by the police, often his books have even been banned. The Padma Shri was given to him in 1982, and he is very, very fondly called Boypur Sultan. Hajra Bibi Ismail, her story from modern-day Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Guntur district, is actually the story of the battle between communal forces within the community. She was the wife of Muhammad Ismail Sahib in the Guntur district. The couple was strongly influenced by Mahatma Gandhi and dedicated themselves to the Khadi movement. And therefore husband Muhammad Ismail Sahib was also known as Khaddar Ismail. However, in those days in Tenali was also the headquarters of the Muslim League, and in that region, this section of the Muslim community was also geared towards the Muslim League. But since Hajra Bibi and Muhammad Ismail followed Gandhi, they faced stiff opposition from the Leaguees. And Hajra Bibi did not lose her courage, though her husband was arrested several times for the movement. Both husband and wife, the Ismail couple, wanted their children to be educated where nationalism was taught. Thus, they sent their girl children to a school like that. Opposed to Muslim communalists, they had to face boycott from sections of their own community. Hajra Bibi stood firm against this, even after she lost her husband, Khaddar Ismail, in 1948. And even when the government, after that, of independent India, offered her land in compensation, she refused it and actually said she wanted to work for the service of the people. She ran a Khaddar store, a Khadi store in her little village, and remained till her death in 1994 committed to a composite nationalism. Again, we don't find mention of her in our textbooks. Then we have Hydra Vega from Saharanpur. Born in 1910, she came to know about the sacrifices of freedom fighters who were fighting against the British from her father, who was a police officer under the British. Slowly but surely, as she grew older, she decided to take a path that would join the struggle for emancipation. She went abroad, took a liberal education, and was criticizing the British government in several international fora, and finally returned as a lecturer to the Karamat Hussain College at Lucknow in 1935. She worked along with the famous poet Sajjad Zahid and formed the All India Progressive Writers Association, a formidable cultural movement that actually challenged not just oppression of the state, but also the oppression of patriarchy and communal forces within communities. She got married to a nationalist leader, Zainuddin Abidin Ahmad, in 1935, and also joined the Indian National Congress. Ironically, while participating in the activities of the Congress, she also campaigned for the Communist Party without the knowledge of the police. She actively took part in the election campaign in those days, and as a result of this, number of Congress leaders even got elected. She spoke on different subjects as a lecturer and was very, very popularly known as Hajra among the toiling people and women. So, women, men, all sections among the Muslim community participated very, very intensely in the battle for freedom against the British. But who were those Muslims apart from these, from across the length and breadth of India, from Sindh in the northwest of the country down south to Kerala, who stood clearly against the demand for a division of the country espoused to the partition resolution of the Muslim League in 1940 and voiced a clear vote for a united India? Little do we know about Allah Bakhsh. Allah Bakhsh Muhammad Umar Sumru, who was the premier, as the chief ministers were then known, of the Sindh in pre-partition days. During the eventful days of the Quit India movement of 1942, we've just had the 75th anniversary of the Quit India movement last week, and as head of the Ittihad party, which is a unity party, which did not allow Muslim League to gain any foothold in the Muslim majority province of Sindh, though he was not actually part of the Indian National Congress, he got extremely annoyed and irked when the British Prime Minister then, Winston Churchill, made a derogatory reference to the Indian freedom struggle and the Quit India movement in a speech to British Parliament. Reacting to this, Allah Bakhsh was clear. He said that if this is the attitude of the British, which means that the British is really against freedom for India. The British administration was so upset by this dissent of Allah Bakhsh that he was removed from the office by the then governor, Sir Hugh Dow, in October 1942, and this great sacrifice of a Muslim leader for freedom remains unknown today. After the dismissal of the Allah Bakhsh government in 1942 and his murder, he was murdered. And he was murdered by no less persons than hired killers by the Muslim League, and this allowed for the entry of the Muslim League into the politics of Sindh. One could see the brazen ganging up between the British rulers and the Muslim League in political and physical liquidation of Allah Bakhsh. A leader of the Muslim League who was tried for the conspiracy to murder Allah Bakhsh was found not guilty because the British government failed to provide an independent witness to prove his involvement. Very, very similarly, it was on the same ground in which Savarkar was later secured acquittal in the Gandhiji murder case. Another very interesting development pre-partition was the Azad Muslim Conference of 1940. Perhaps the greatest contribution of Allah Bakhsh against communal politics was with leaders like Muhammad Ibrahim, Hifzur Rahman, M.A. Ansari and Ishaq Sambhali in organizing a low and backward caste Muslim organization on one platform, the Azad Muslim Conference, the Independent Muslim Conference. It held a session in Delhi from April 27 to April 30, 1940, in which 1,400 delegates from almost all parts of India attended. Remarks were made about this by the media at the time, but the resolution that was passed at the conference in which Allah Bakhsh presided was significant, and I quote, "India would have geographical and political boundaries of an invisible whole land, and as such was the common whole land of all citizens, irrespective of race or region." The conference also resolved that the Pakistan scheme was impracticable and harmful to the country's interests generally and of Muslims in particular. And the conference also called upon Muslims of India to own equal responsibility with other Indians for striving and making sacrifices to achieve the country's independence. Little do we know about Allah Bakhsh, and little do we know about the contribution of this entire section of the Azad Muslim Conference, to the battle for a rational India. So strangely, the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha on the one hand and the Muslim League on the other are two sides of the same sectarian supremacist coin. Both of them were allies of the British. All these forces, Hindu communal and Muslim communal forces, did not really stand up against the British for freedom. Abdul Qayyum Khan from the northwest declared that his province would resist partition with his blood. Sayyid Habibul Rahman, member of the Krishak Praja Party in Bengal, condemned the proposal of partition as absurd and meaningless. Ghulam Hussain Hidayatullah, Sir Ghulam, Premier of Sindh, also rejected the idea of partition, and of course Maulana Abul Kalam Azad also did the same. The Times of India, by the way, in April 30th, 1940 writes, striking mobilization of moderate public opinion among Muslims, which is in no way committed to the intransigence of the Muslim League. They were describing the views expressed by the Azad Muslim Conference. So this is a section of our history that we need to know. History is as much about what we don't know as much as we know. So here's to learning more and more together. Thank you so much. Until next time.